So here we're going to have a look at a LaGard Basic electronic safe lock. Just to briefly explain the way that good quality electronic safe locks work is there are two major components. There's the external input pad, and internally to the safe there's the lock body, which holds all of the codes and the vital information that permits correct codes in and disallows incorrect codes. The keypad or input pad is purely like, I guess you can think of it like the keyboard on your computer. It's just a method of interacting with the lock body on the inside, but it doesn't retain any of the vital information. The LaGard Basic is available in two main lock body configurations. The most common being what we refer to as a swing bolt, which basically requires two individual components for the lock and the handle. The handle drives the bolt work inside the safe. The keypad unlocks at the time that allows the bolt work to pass through. If you have the square bolt design, in most cases you'll find there isn't a handle because the keypad actually turns and acts as the handle after the correct code has been input. There's several different keypad variations you'll find. This particular one we have installed on this safe is called a 3000 keypad. Most commonly used on heavy duty commercial safes and some very large perhaps bank, jeweler or cash safes. They are very effective for that high volume operation, and the functions don't change by using the 3000 keypad. The other more common variations you'll find on domestic or low to mid commercial safes, there's the 3710, which is not very common these days, but you will still find them on pre-installed safes. The 3715, which has just been superseded by the 4715. It's very similar in looks to the 3710, but it just has a different design as far as the way it's mounted and the way that you get access to the battery for replacements. There's also the 3035 keypad, again not quite as common with this particular lock, and it's intended to be used with either the square bolt or the swing bolt lock body configurations, and the same for the 3750 series keypad. It's able to be configured with the square bolt or swing bolt operations. Like I said, this particular one is the 3000 series keypad, but these instructions and features will apply to all the different variations as the functions are actually programmed in the firmware of the lock body inside the safe. Now, as standard from factory, these locks will have two codes programmed into them. One code is referred to as an SMR, or a Super Master Reset code. This code is basically a fail-safe in the event that you forget or don't get to retain codes from users that you've installed. Upon entering the SMR code, the lock would then revert back to factory setting and would allow you to then change the manager and user codes like you've just purchased the safe brand new. We will have a different video for the SMR and manager code programming functions, purely because we like to separate the more basic operation of the safe lock, to the more complex functions of it. The codes that are pre-installed, the SMR is 8 digits as standard, and the manager code, or the only code that's installed for operation of the safe from the factory, is a 6-digit code. All codes that you input for day-to-day use will be a 6-digit code. And this particular lock, that would make 1,000,000 possible combinations, and along with the wrong code penalties, which will time out the lock, it makes a very difficult task trying to obtain the code without any idea of what the code would be. To give you an indicator, when you do enter the correct code, you'll get an additional beep at the end of the last digit press, which makes it sound like a double beep. And then you may hear the soft ticking sound which comes from inside the safe. That's the solenoid retracting and the lock then unlocking. So if we were just to enter the correct code again, you'll see the handle will unlock at the end of that 6th number press. If an incorrect code is pressed, you'll hear an additional beep again. So it sounds like 3 straight beeps and 3 straight flashes from the LED. So it's fairly apparent that you're entering the wrong code. The wrong try penalty on this model of safe lock, is 4 invalid code attempts will lock you out for a period of 5 minutes. At the end of that 5-minute delay period, you'll get 2 additional attempts, and then it will lock you out for 5 more minutes, and that'll sort of keep happening each time you have 2 additional attempts. In the lockout period, the keypad will just appear to be completely dead, and you will hear an intermittent ticking sound and a flash of the little red LED every 10 seconds. It's quite common that people think that there's something wrong with the safe lock in the event of that wrong try penalty. So it's good advice just to wait 5 minutes and try your code again if you find yourself having any problems with the keypad just not responding. On this particular model with the low battery warning, when you enter in any codes, you will find that it will just give you a series of slightly softer but repetitive beeps. So it's very obvious that something's not going right. It's just to alert you that there is a battery issue. Because the battery on this safe lock is on the outside of the safe, there's no reason to panic. If the batteries go flat, you can just replace them prior to needing access to the safe. There's no need like a smoke alarm to have to replace it periodically just in case. We will go through the battery change, the code change procedures, and the normal locking and unlocking functions of the safe, and some of the good habits to make sure that you stick with when using the safe. As I said, we will do a separate video for the manager instructions, which will demonstrate the Supermaster reset code change and the way to activate, deactivate and delete additional users. So we'll just run through the opening and typical operation of the safe. As mentioned, the opening procedure is just a simple case of entering the number. There's no need for any star or hash start or finish indicators on this particular model. The opening codes, the manager and the user codes will always be 6 digits in length, so as soon as you complete the 6-digit press, the lock knows that you've finished entering your code, and it'll either let you in or disallow you if it's the incorrect code. As far as the period of time that it remains unlocked for, the lock body inside will automatically lock again after 4 seconds. While we've got the handle turned, obviously the safe itself won't lock. Once we turn it back to the lock position, the lock body will then lock behind the boltwork and the handle and make sure it can't be opened again. It is very, very important that every time you access your safe, close the door and test the handle to make sure it is locked before you walk away. There has been instances where people have not realised they've got something jammed in the boltwork, and the safe doesn't actually lock properly because the bolts aren't allowed to extend properly. We will quickly go through now the code change procedure for the manager code. As I mentioned previously, there is the ability to use the SMR or Supermaster reset code, as well as the manager user code programming functions. If you do want to have a SMR code, which is a factory reset code, make sure that you look at our SMR and manager programming video first, because if you change the manager code before you change the SMR code, it will actually delete the SMR code function. So in this case, we are changing the manager code, which is the 6-digit primary user code. The most important thing you'll ever do when you are programming a safe is the state of the door, or the safe lock, when you are doing the programming. So you'll notice I open the door and lock the bolts with the door in the open position. As you see now, I physically can't close the safe until we unlock it again, essentially. This way, if we do make any mistakes or we don't retain the code that we programmed it to, we can get a safe technician to have a look at the inside of the safe and do a hard reset for us, and reset the lock back to factory specifications. If you do it with the door closed and locked, it's going to get messy, because particularly safes like this one in the video are not easy to open, and can get quite costly if you lock yourself out of them. To initiate the code change procedure, somewhat of a trademark of LaGard safe locks is the simple procedures they have. To activate the code changing method on this model, we simply hit 0 6 times. On completion of the 6th press, we will get a double beep and the red light will stay on. It wants us to enter the current code, so that way you can only change the code if you do know the existing code. double beep and the red light will stay on again, and then we change the code to what we want it to be. Again, 6 digits. Just to make sure that we've entered the code we want, we have to re-enter that same code again. Code's been accepted, the double beep and the light went out, but just to make sure it's been accepted, we just enter it to see if the safe unlocks. Safe unlocks allows us to close the door again. Obviously, if we didn't do the code change procedure correctly, we wouldn't be able to close and lock the safe again. Again, if we want to do the code changing down the track, so if you choose to change your code again in 6, 12 months, whenever you like, you still use the same procedure, but you'll notice that that factory code of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 doesn't work anymore. So you just have to replace the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 with whatever your current code is in the safe. In this instance, 147852. Again, we make sure that we lock the safe in the open position. We hit 0 6 times to initiate the code change procedure. We enter the current code, and just for sake of this, we'll just set it back to the factory settings so that we know what this safe's always set to. Okay, so we have one working code, which is the manager code 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So now we're going to have a quick look at the correct battery change procedures. It is very easy to access and change input pad. This one, like I mentioned, some of the other keypads do have different battery change procedures and mounting of the keypad, so we can have a look at some of those ones later in another video, but this particular method that we're about to do now is the most common. It's the method you would use on the 3000 series, the 3715 and the new 4715. A very common thing with digital locks, people might say that the lock's not working properly. The golden rule with electronic safes is to always try the battery first. Sometimes a battery that has low voltage, it may give the impression that it's working but just not have enough juice in the battery to be able to unlock the safe. So it's always a good practice that if you do find any issue with the safe not opening, that we change the battery straight away. Even if it's a brand new battery, because you can get some that just aren't holding voltage off the shelf. So with this particular keypad, we just lift it upwards, and you'll see the 2 mounting screws behind, and it's sort of just a press down method to attach the keypad to the safe. Just make sure that we don't keep any strain on the cable here, because we don't want to damage it internally and give ourselves a headache trying to get in. You'll see that there is a 9-volt battery just held on with the black plastic clip. You can just unclip that quite easily. Make sure you hold the bracket when you're pulling and not the wires, as if you pull the wires you may damage the clip and then stop the battery clip being able to work. New battery gets put in, slide it back in under the rubber cover, and then the safe lock can go back on the same way. It's very important to make sure that the cable doesn't get pinched when you put the keypad back on. Any damage to the keypad is obviously going to stop it being able to correctly communicate with the lock body inside. The other thing you may have noticed is on this 3000 series pad there's actually provisions for 2 batteries. 2 batteries aren't required for normal operation. That would just purely give it a longer running time or a longer life before you need to change the batteries again. The 3715, 4715 keypads will only have provisions for 1 battery, and typically that's all that's required. So that's all the information on the LaGard Basic electronic safe lock. Just to reiterate a few key points from the video, as well as one we hadn't discussed yet. The first one is, if you do find yourself having any issues at all with the electronic locks, try new batteries straight away. So if it's not performing the way you expect it to, or not operating the way you expect it to, even if it has a relatively newly installed battery in there, make sure you try a new battery, as you can get faulty ones off the shelf. Don't use lithium batteries or rechargeable batteries. They don't provide the voltages required by the locks, and both Dominator Safes and LaGard suggest Duracell alkaline batteries are ideal for use in these locks. Point number 2, before you undergo any code changing or functional changing procedures, make sure you open the safe and lock the bolts with the safe door open. And as I mentioned, if a safe technician can get to the inside of the safe, they're able to perform a hard reset. and set the lock back to factory settings. Point number 3 is just in normal operation of the safe, make sure before you walk away you test the handle to make sure it's correctly locked. It is easy for something to fall in between the bolts and the frame of the safe, and when you think you may have locked it properly, the bolts might not have extended all the way. So just get in the habit of testing the handle is locked before you walk away. And the 4th point is a very important one, and it's something you need to consider before you undergo any of the code changing procedures, and that is selecting the code that you want to use in the safe. It's very important that you don't use what I refer to as obtainable codes, so any number that has significance to you or someone close to you that could be obtained by someone that got a hold of perhaps some mail or other accessible information. So birthdays or relevant dates are a common one that really aren't a good code to use. There are actually some codes in the safe that are recorded as bad codes and it won't actually accept. So if you use too many of the same digit in your code, it may not accept the code. So make sure you use something that you will remember and will know to use from every time you use a safe, but not something that is obtainable to anyone else. Follow those simple rules and you won't have any problems with electronic safe locks, in particular Dominator Safes or LaGard electronic safe locks.